Good evening, Andy. Sorry, I got sidetracked there for a moment.
All right. How is my sound? And good afternoon.
Sounds good. And Christine, whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and try your sound.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening.
Let's see here. It's so important to arrange the windows correctly so you don't have to fiddle with it during the meeting. Good afternoon. My name is Andy Gustafson, and I am the zoning administrator. I'd like to call to order the November 2nd, 2001 meeting of the zoning administrator. This is a special meeting. Under the Resilient Code, we can bring housing items like this forward to a meeting outside of our normal zoning administrator Thursday alternate weeks meeting schedule to promote efficient and streamlined processing of housing projects that are so vitally needed. This is a remote meeting. It will be conducted as we would conduct any in-person meeting. We are meeting remote pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E and the recommendation of the Public Health Officer of the county that we hold this public meeting and other public meetings at the city remotely via Zoom seminar or webinar. The members of the public will be able to participate as with any meeting, but in this case, you'll be required to raise your hand, to select the hand icon, and you'll be recognized. Or if you're dialing in, you'll need to press *9 and you'll be recognized. This is a one-item agenda. And so before we go forward, as with any public meeting, we do allow for, and I don't see on the agenda, which should be here, is a opportunity for public comment. So I will.
Sorry, Andy, but remember, we learned from the clerk's office that we don't do public comment at a special meeting.
Well, okay. My practice is in experiences that we do allow that, but I won't make any more issue of that. That's fine. If that's the case, then there shall be no public comment, and let's proceed directly to the first and only item on the agenda. And the project planner is Kristen A. Tumans, and it is a design review for 891 3rd Street. Kristen A., please give us your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Gustafson. This is a project at 891 3rd Street. It's known as the 891 3rd Street Multifamily Housing Project. And the project description states that the project is an 18-unit, 3-story multifamily project, and the proposal is the second phase of the adjacent mid-rise located at 888 4th Street. The unit sizes range from 358 square feet to 448 square feet. The proposed design includes podium level common space, a rooftop terrace, and rear picnic area under existing oak trees. It's located in the downtown area specific plan area off of 3rd Street, very close to Brookwood. Here is an aerial of the project site. It's flanked by two structures. I believe they're both used as office space. I believe one is a residence and one is an office. And the companion project is the larger vacant parcel that you see there on 4th Street. So this is the general plan and zoning designations. So the general plan and zoning designations have both changed since 888 4th Street was approved, and that project is currently under construction. The 888 4th Street project was zoned CD7, and the general plan designation was retail business service. The project site today was a commercial office, and now they're both NMU, neighborhood mixed use. And rather than, so CD7 would limit development by height and stories, and CO normally wouldn't allow for residential uses. But now with NMU, the density limitation is created by FAR, which is kind of a new concept for the city. This is the general plan designation for the subject property, and as you can see, it's NMU surrounding it as well. Here's the project site, looking straight at it from 3rd Street. You can see the two buildings that flank on either side. And you can actually see 888 4th Street under construction, the piers and foundation that's been poured and the rebar sticking up. Here's the view on 4th Street for the 888 4th Street project. It's currently under construction. And here is a rendering showing the proposed project. You can see it in the sort of an olive green color, flanked by those two buildings. This is the applicant provided neighborhood context map. Here is a site plan. It shows the 888 4th Street site and the current project site. Here is the proposed site plan. The apartment complex would be set towards the front in order to preserve oak trees in the back that would serve as an amenity space for the residents. The FAR, NME requires that an applicant meet the midpoint of the FAR, which is 4. This project doesn't quite do that because for one, 3 stories seems more compatible with the existing uses on 3rd Street. And second, the oak trees in the back, as well as some utilities, existing utilities in the back, provide obstacles for building out for an FAR of 4. Another thing to note is, since the adoption of the downtown area specific plan, the newest version, there is no parking requirement in the downtown area. And while the applicant states that parking, the residents will be able to use parking on 888 4th Street, there's no city requirement for the applicant to do that. That's a voluntary measure that the applicant is taking. It's also interesting to note that 888 4th Street is built beyond what the FAR limit allows. So the new general plan designation and specific plan designation sort of make it complicated. So the FAR for 888 4th Street is, I think, 5 when it should be 4. But I think if you average the 2 sites, it is within midpoint range. So continuing on, these are the overall floor and roof plans. So you can see the 3 stories and the roof. Partial 1st and 2nd floors, so you can see how the units will lay out. There's a pathway shown on the right side that would take the residents to the rear amenity yard and to the parking at 888 4th Street. Sorry, there's a delay. Here are some elevations. So exterior elevations of the south and east. This project did go before the design review board for concept design review, and it was met with very favorable comments. I think they had very minor suggestions, but no, as they say, shalls for the applicant, just things for the applicant to consider as far as changes. Those are documented in the resolution. Here's a rendering of what it would look like from 3rd Street, sort of at an angle. Here's another 3D model, I believe looking at the rear amenity space towards 3rd Street. This is the rear yard. And another view from 3rd Street. These are this is the proposed color scheme for the project, and the light fixture, which would be downcast as required by code, and the proposed landscape plan. And if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them. The applicant is also available to answer questions.
No, I have no questions. I'll return to the midpoint density calculation and its relationship to the property, and at the end of the public presentation and the applicant's presentation. So now's the opportunity for the applicant to comment or provide more information. If you wish to do so, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. I see 2. Paul Gilger was the first hand up, so let's recognize Paul.
Hi, everybody. Paul Gilger here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Was the other hand Hugh Futrell? I can't hear you.
It was, yes.
Why don't we do this? Let's have Hugh go first.
Okay.
The only thing, I just have one clarification. In the very first slide, you mentioned that there was common space on the ground floor, not inside the building, just out back. And the building does not have a roof deck. So you can see it from the plans, but that's all I wanted to really say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's recognize Mr. Futrell.
We are. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Hugh Futrell, 204th Street. I'll be brief and then turn things over to the project architect, Paul Gilger. Just a couple of quick observations. This project is in essence the second phase of the larger project, and the residents in this building that we're discussing this afternoon will have access to all the common facilities in the larger project. And I would imagine that's why the project description made the reference that it did. That would include the roof deck and among other things. In respect to floor area ratio, a correction. Christina, I think that you're in error. I did the calculations on the floor area ratio for the existing building, and it's my recollection is it's 3.97 actually. So it actually is within the 4 within the existing plan. Bill Rose and I exchanged some emails on that topic because I was concerned when the floor area ratio was coming through for this area of town. And I thought, you know, this is awfully close to have prevented this larger project from having gone forward. But it's 5 stories above podium. And of course, most of the podium is a garage. And the 5 stories only make up a portion of the totality of the 30,000 square foot building. And that's what lowered the FAR. The combined is, though, as you pointed out, well below 4 in any case. The floor area ratio, I believe on this particular project, 891 3rd Street, is very low. I believe it's less than 1.5 actually. And there are the other factors which influenced us in coming forward with not only a 3-story design, but also a design in which a very large portion of the site was not built on at all. In terms of any other issues, I think Paul can cover them architecturally, but I'll be happy later to answer questions as well. So if it's appropriate, Andy, I would step back and turn this over to Paul Gilger.
Thank you. Paul, do you have any more that you want to add?
Sure. Christine, can you go back to the presentation? Let's just do two things. Let's go to the floor plan first. And I'll just very briefly, and I think the building is relatively self-explanatory, but there were quite a few goals that Mr. Futrell had and we wanted to accomplish with this job. So if you're able to go to one of the floor plan sheets, or even it was about the 3rd sheet in on your presentation. We'll take a look at it. And then after we look at that, we'll look at the exterior.
Kimberly or Christine, are you in control of the presentation? Can you show those exhibits? Thank you.
Perfect. So well, we've really packed a lot into a small building. And one of the goals here by the developer was to try to create very pragmatic housing that did not require us to have to jump through a bunch of hoops, rules and regulations that takes us off into never land. We wanted something very buildable. And you can see that with the unit sizes in the 400 square foot range, and we've made all the ground floor units ADA accessible, which is pretty amazing considering it's pretty hard to get units this small to be ADA accessible. We feel that this project really fills a need in the town, which is the very efficient 1-bedroom apartments. We do have a wide range of housing stock that we have to take care of, not the least of which, like myself, are singles, seniors, people like that who would really enjoy being back downtown. So our goal here was to try to create affordable housing, economical, pragmatic, that can be built using standard building materials, and also to try to keep the building more in scale and in architecture with 3rd Street. So Christine, if you're able to advance the presentation up to maybe the front perspective of 3rd Street is probably the best one to go to. Yeah, go. I keep going there. Go past the 2-dimensional elevations. If you can get to go past these, and then perhaps the very first 3D image of the model would be great. There we go. Yeah. Back up to one more. There we go. Great. So we did a lot of walking around the neighborhood, and we tried to use building materials that were prevalent in the neighborhood. And about 75% of the buildings on 3rd Street are faced in some sort of a wood product. Most of them are horizontal siding, some shingle, some board and bat. And so we decided to use those same wall materials for this project. Was one item. Another item is the belt line, which you see that runs around the building at the 2nd floor windowsills. A very important element of the building because it does help to reduce the apparent height of the building. And you do see belt lines used a lot in that neighborhood. And I felt personally that at this position, it's a nice proportion. About 2/5 of the building, the bottom 2/5 is shingle, and the top 3/5 is horizontal siding. And then we wanted to counterpoint it with something to give it a little bit of a flair. So we came up with using board and bat in an artistic way to emphasize the vertical elements of the building, which happens to be the plumbing stacks and the stairway stacks, and that's what you see expressed on the outside. Also, the other thing that we did was by using real residential scale windows. These windows are the standard 3 foot wide, 5 foot high single hungs, which is not only the minimum size required for egress to get out of bedrooms, but also is one of the prevalent window sizes used in that neighborhood. So, so in the interest of really a lot of trying to make it fit into the neighborhood, knowing that the building is a box, we did everything we could to make it as gentle as possible. And I think the final thing is, I'll talk about the roof. You can see the building does have a generous overhang, and it's needed. If it didn't have the overhang, the building would look very boxy. And the roof does put a nice cap in the building. One of the great things, of course, about eaves, it helps protect the building, helps the building weather better. And another reason we did decide to go with a flat roof, not only was to keep the numerous things. We have to keep the building down because of allowed building height, number one. Number two, we have to keep the building down so that we don't have to have a fire truck access down alongside the building. The fire department wants to be able to get up onto the eave of the building, and they only allow a certain height. And then the third thing is we're respecting the views out of the living units for the building on 4th Street. We did not want a huge high roof on this building that would block people's view looking out. So I believe with that, I think that pretty much everything I need to say, and certainly, obviously, I can answer any questions or any clarifications.
I had, and thank you for that presentation on the design. I did have one question with regard to the pedestrian connectivity between this property and the larger property on 4th Street. I know we don't have parking requirements, but an assertion is made that these tenants will be able to park on that adjoining property. What accommodation is made for that connection between the two? I didn't really see it in the plan set very clearly.
Kristen, if you could go to the site plan, it'll be colored. I think it's the page that also has a site photo on it. And you'll see that I do show a little bit of the back of the other building. We do lead to a doorway that goes right to the garage. Yeah, perfect. So the beige, there, right there you go. Right there is the back door into the garage. And our goal is, and that is ADA compliant decomposed granite back there. And that takes us right to the door of the building.
And what is that gap? It reads like some opening or window or roll-up door. Is that also part of an connection between this property and the property on 4th?
I'd have to have Hugh answer that one. I believe it is a roll-up door. Maybe Hugh can verify that. I'm not as familiar with that particular plan.
I'm happy to comment if I am not muted.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
We can hear you
Okay,
fine.
thanks. So at one time, in fact, there was the notion of putting a roll-up door back there. And we concluded that that was not the ideal connection. The ideal connection would be simply more heavily pedestrian oriented. And so what you have is a door entry. It'll have a security punch in. The circulation through the garage is a pedestrian circulation. Given the nature of the tenancies here, I think there will be people that park in the building and walk then through the open space behind the two buildings, but I don't believe that all tenants will. The ultimate design of what that door looks like is part of the 8888 project, but it has been my belief that above the door there should be a architecturally interesting soffit and other architectural features, including lighting on either side of the door, so that it feels like an integrated part of the walkway. between the two buildings. That's aesthetically important. We're not showing that because that's not part of this building permit, but it will come forward to the city as part of a construction drawing element revision at some point in the near future.
Thank you for the clarification. And also, Mr. Cottrell, can you, I think I read in the project description, the intention to merge this lot with the property to the north. Is that correct?
Yes, we've actually submitted a merger application several months ago, and it's under process with the city.
Okay, great. All right, well, yeah, appreciate that description about the pedestrian connectivity. Any other information you want to share now before I offer the opportunity for any member of the public to comment? All right, seeing none, I'd like to offer anybody in attendance who wishes to comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. This is a great project. Obviously, it's a part of the much larger one to the north on 4th Street. And I think the design drawings and in response to the conceptual design review comments show that this building can fit well in the environment in that residential, blended residential commercial setting. It's really excellent to see this type project go forward. I do appreciate the description about that pedestrian connection. While there is no parking requirement here, it's very likely that the tenants will have vehicles, and by having access to covered parking on the adjoining property, I think it really is an amenity that your tenants will enjoy, and having connectivity that provides access is important. So addressing that up with some architectural feature to make it connected, I think it's a really great idea. I encourage that. We had some discussion about FAR, and I do want to turn my attention to the resolution at this point on the first finding number 1. There were a great set of facts there, or circumstances, to support the exception to the midpoint. And I want to ask project planner Kristen A. Toomans if we could simply rely upon the statement regarding exceptions as the basis for establishing this project's FAR compliance, and not have the additional information about combined FAR, which I think would apply as kind of like a backstop. If this property is being merged with the other one, effectively the FAR on both, would have been combined. So I think it's information we don't need, but I get it. So I would ask your opinion, can we eliminate that combined FAR component of finding number 1 and still have the basis for making that particular finding about compatibility with development standards?
Yeah, I was just reading it through, and yes, I can make that change.
All right. But I do want to note, I really appreciate the resolution. It does a great job of memorializing the pathway or the steps getting to this point. I think it's very helpful, and the findings that you do make relative to this property or this project are excellent. And I really have no other suggestions or questions regarding the resolution. The conditions of approval are appropriate. So with that, I'm very pleased to say I approve the project as modified in finding number 1, or the resolution to approve the project, modifying finding number 1 by eliminating the last sentence. I think it's the last sentence. Yes, it is one sentence. No, it's the last 2 sentences. And then we're done at, what time is it? 5:29.
Wow, can I treat everybody to a drink?
Virtually, certainly. I'm happy to participate. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. An excellent project coming forward.
Well, thank you. It means a lot to Hugh and I.
Yeah, thank you both very much.
Take
Have a
care.
good evening.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.